Hello, people of Weathersfield, North Connecticut. There's a Michael Emmett. I recorded, I hyper evidentially recorded, further involved with the Facebook pages of Weathersfield Police, now Connecticut's District Court, with predicate acts and confirmations of roles with that before the World Trade Center attack, too. There had been roles with a Gary of Eric Verges with many intercities and next to schools who have been planting evidences as timed collusion slash S with youth slash S of abuses of the kids of leaders of schools and of the differences of the abuses of the other kids too. Because that difference was used to hide behind by people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. It's also people that had collusion slash S replacing answers that nature and that our founders gave us relative to black people's rights of eyes and how they have been left out from the subjects, like where and how the breaching method employed. Black and white, other to be communicated for them what nature communicates about that, except for nature when it's criminal insidiousness. See, I'm not even a lawyer. Lawyers, all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the court's names and the intelligence tied to them, foreign and domestic, they are shared at and next to campuses with use slash S of the locations to hide live aggressions relative to where and to how they are being and have been used remotely at countries A through Z. Their syntax. Otherwise, that body is sensed, including if it is a majority of people, including if it is everybody. For example, there are recorded conscious use slash S of other being and having been communicated for James Madison and for our founders, then they communicated. And there are self-valued roles used remotely, self-valuing their words, leaving out with use slash S of their words, leaving out what they declassified about that, and leaving out, like, for example, things that are inseparable from those subjects and natural questions, like how there were laws against every single person. There were torture, extortion, slavery laws against everyone. If anyone was found out to have been speaking about building infrastructure outside of internationally monitored conversations, that person, everyone around them was hurt, tortured, killed. Worse, a breaching method had a possession over everyone, sickly distinctly, to keep how sickly, just not distinctly, even though valuable to everyone, self-value roles, keeping that other pretended, pretend did not realize. Otherwise, that body sensed, including if a majority of people, including if everyone. People use their difference as through and as systems tactile terror from nature. That's why and how if anyone tries to address black people's whites of eyes, we have someone jump up and say they're black or white, pollute the whole conversation, pretend they can't, we don't realize that we can't discern right through their delusion, criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects, nature. The interbranch already were a certain type of victim slash hyper victim that already came through campuses abridged. That already had other communicated for our founders, that communicated for us to blame a breaching method. And while they were sitting there blaming other things, others said, "Oh, well, what you read? Well, this researcher says this. Black pupils, this is research pure." So there's a Michael Emmett involved with people with foreign and domestic, a whole bunch of different countries who have collusions also with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And they don't even realize the extent with our own criminally foreign influence, fact, nature, quality aspects in nature. Let them speak about what witch trials about. Have you heard what people take? How could you bring up a trial like a subject like witch trials and leave out how the breaching method had already had slavery entrenched, crazy laws against every single person too, sickly distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies, and then America's founders were born. Already the breaching method had been perfected from semi-ancient times. It set people up needing to counter itself. And with the counters would have to be people countering themselves, Native Americans against Native Americans, and then America's founders were born, and it was colonists against colonists. The difference, you know what I'm saying? It's just a quality of fact human nature as criminal insidiousness nature / hypercriminal insidiousness nature. And it's important to speak. I'm not even a lawyer because nature itself shows that there's an additional, there's a foundation to the suits and ties, the counters and exceptions that's inseparable too from where and how the suburbs were designed before America's founders were even born. In other words, they had means to build better back then. Let alone now we have cars, trains, planes. In other words, see, when people have differences and they speak on difference or have a nature debate, there's self-value collusions with the wire and mail crime, digital crime. There's a Michael Emmit, a digital upskirt nature picture guy. And there's a Leahy family with kids and their own kids involved with more Facebook, involved with a Judge Killian and other judges, a Judge Smith, a Brian Silver, involved with prosecutors, judges, involved with child defenders, identity theft, fraud, slanders, whole predicate act methods, digital crime methods where they change a fake, which digitally recorded, using remotely the sense and sensibilities of Judge Napolitano demonstrably. Has something to do with their roles at and next to all sides of the Weathersfield Community Center. For example, there's a Subby Bajerio. I never tried to. He sought me out to make confessions and demonstrations. Also with the Judge Smith, put fake things. He stole things. I wasn't even in the same location. I wasn't even with him when he stole them, and I traded that for a purchased location. Has something to do with the audio plays. And places all along the Burlington Turnpike. They have people and places associated with DeMoro family members, involved with foreign and domestic intelligence, with the names next to Harvard Hospital, all kinds of organized crimes with kids, all kinds of predicate acts with their teachers, putting fake things in databases with them, lying about themselves and others behind other people's back, and then acting on TV. Oh, but I directed him to do that. That's because you guys are roles with people. You're jumping into people's conversations. In other words, these are people connected at each of the campuses I went to. Ray Reynolds. In other words, they tried to make a fake exception of me knowing him when I went to 1 year to a school in kindergarten. His educators are increasingly tied to people planting evidences with him and people that live next to that school. Increasingly with judges and prosecutors with drugs and medicines, crimes, tactical delusions. Still, we have to address the delusions that all sides have. Our countries and all other people's legal identities, they're clearer than day. Relative to where and how you guys have been blaming other things, others yourselves, with nature itself and our founders themselves tell us to blame in the breaching method. What are witch trials about? The breaching method that had the crazy laws against everyone, even black people's rights of eyes. Systems tactilitarily than what nature communicates. And roles without self-value or that body is sensed through their own. That certain type of pseudo-sophistication that pretends it could speak for sophistication, A through Z. Here is DNA, vaccines. So public television has roles also with Russians. Per them. There's a Peruta family that sought me out. I didn't respond. I didn't tell them what was recorded about it. In other words, trying to make a fake exception with demonstration, the same thing. I had no communication with the guy. Said, hello, that's it. In other words, there's a Peruta family involved with a former mayor, former police chiefs, and their family members and intimate ties with the same house/S. Involved wire crimes in the digital media. The Facebook pages of the Britain Superior Court and Hartford Court. They have roles, federal crimes, all different kinds of natures, federal evidences crimes, and collusions with organized crimes that were timed collusions with the principal child defender and with kids and their parents planting evidences at corners of streets and with WFSB. WFSB, who has had people planting evidences with child defenders proven and further with the schools, with people at and next to corners of streets on Ridge Road, like people tied to Paul Kelly and their neighbors, are increasingly involved with drugs and medicines crimes, with probate court judges, family members, and people that planted evidences on my streets with them since I was a kid. Joshua Julian is one of the ones who recorded digital crime acts and methods with a Michael Emmit and the Facebook page of the principal child offender and the Wethersfield police. There's a Jessica Cintron, also brought in by the confessions of police, also switching and forging names. And you guys delaying me getting a response from this all this time. Whiting Forensics, when I was a kid too, they had roles with predicate acts, with people involved, also with the FBI. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, he has co-defendants as various natures of federal criminals involved with various natures of cases and locations that WFSB also attached me to fake communications with them with that about that and with my family about that. And they lied fake conversations with me to the public. They've been planting evidences and then just we don't know they're playing hear no evil, see no evil consciously and pretending other because they're behavior racketeering regarding people's reactions. There are nonverbal communications increasingly people with the name Dillon, like Kevin Dillon, and Anna Dillon, Thomas Dillon, recorded involved at corners of streets, like on with people at the campuses I went to. It's not by accident, in other words, and exceptions. So, in other words, there's an Anthony Yagman. Increasingly, he saw and his brother saw. I don't know them. They're trying to make fake they made fake exceptions, totally made up. And the other times I only know them real quick. Someone takes the picture and make it fake, pretend I know them in ways that I don't. They have roles with people further with the Board of Education, with this Michael Emmett, and there are people with the name Riley involved with the planting evidences on all sides of my house. With the police forms, there are people with the name Adam Domain and Michael Domain, and they have their parents and their neighbors, and how they're at a corner of the street near a park, next to a park, is also with the Violet family. A whole bunch of people with the intelligence community at UConn are and have been involved intercities and with names all along roads and routes like Route 75, Route, the Burlington Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. In other words, which Route 175 runs through, perpendicularly. In other words, Michael Emmett, do what's right and get me a response for the police forging and switching names and making confessions about their roles with the people that brought up the principal child abusers campus to me, too. Robert Rodriguez also confessed the name Scalora involved with that. Other police also brought that name up and then pretended I responded. I had no verbal response. There's an officer forced himself through my door and then warned me about a Scalora. Also the fake, like I even brought a Scalora up. A Scalora has been planting evidences with police families, intercities, and with people that say they're their cousins next to me, as people involved with people from other areas who affected confessions to me on my street in Wethersfield, as people involved with untimely deaths at Trinity College, even if it was made up. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a Joshua Stryker are lying about themselves and me with people and to people at the campuses, like the leaders of the kids too. Dean Alford will tell you this. It's recorded. I never had any communications on campus with a Joshua Stryker, an Eric Oliveri, and a Craig Oliveri. I never communicated with the Craig Oliveri about it. And Eric Oliveri sought me out to make confessions, make a fake exception of knowing me. One time at his house, and one time next to the state judicial branch offices, which he doesn't live far from, too. As people involved with the World Trade Center attack with him. And increasingly, people tied to a Keene family have roles with planting evidences against me since they were kids, fake ties and fake natures of ties to me. So there's this Joshua Julian, I don't know at all, who's one of the ones with attachments to all these people, too, a lot of ways. And this is use of location /S because there are overt criminal enterprises in a whole bunch of different countries at the spots next to the campuses, involved with the predicate acts methods at the campuses, recorded, connected to. So a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield will tell you, a whole bunch of kids from Wethersfield, when I was a kid and then as an adult, they're influenced, Like some ways, it's the criminal enterprises that are most criminally foreign influence, and relative to why we're going to examine what's manifest, where people ask questions or make statements and repeat things that are used to keep the difference between our side or other sides as a fake difference and used to hide behind, and them self-valued rules using real differences like how they kill each other to pretend they couldn't fathom where and how Russians and Americans have all kinds of collusions at fire campuses and medical campuses. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital are tied to people named Kalol and Smith that live near me, who are involved with wire and mail crime with the Wethersfield police. And they brought this up. And that's why they need to get on paper. They're making people bring each other's names up, leaving their own out because they have foreign countries involved with them. A whole bunch of ways. Mark Violet has roles with people from Korea or South Korea, whatever. In other words, with drugs and medicines crimes with Yukon and people next to Hartford Hospital involved with the intelligence community at spots next to there and where they go. Increasingly, people tied to a John Mayano. He's lied about himself. I mean, he's involved with sequentists with them. As World Trade Center cover, his coaches, he had conversations with coaches using my name to hide live progressions. Increasingly, as people collusions with all kinds of ways with former mayors from Wethersfield, have collusions with people named Mayano at bakeries too, a modern pastry and Mazzucato Bakery recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusion with this John Mayano, who also confessed a Jessica Cintron, involved with him with federal evidence his crimes with the DeMoros. I never saw him around with DeMoro. He gave shifting descriptions and brought him up. In other words, he has roles intercities with people with Middletown locations with intelligence and Central Connecticut State University with intelligence. Interstates and intercities and inter-campuses and intra-campuses. So in other words, there are more people with the campuses that have roles with this, repeating fake things and refusing mandated law proper so they can get away with it. Trying, they're not allowed to fish for what you guys are doing, like pretending you can't realize. You need to get on paper too, because you've been attaching little kids to fake and changed communications with their family members since they were kids. The WTNH has roles with various natures of federal criminals, like ones on Dearborn Street and Newington, proven and further recorded, as their roles with various police departments fabricating evidence is also with the FBI and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his defendant capacities, also with his lawyer, or Robert Chavaret, also with a whole bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News, which is one of the spots next to the state capitol, has something to do with a whole bunch of people next to the state capitol, have roles with their educators from other classrooms, trying to put fake ties and fake natures of ties and fake motivations for it against other people, has something to do with their roles intercities with people from Korea, planting evidences with them, and their roles with state police and their roles with shopping centers. A whole bunch of people tied to the name and as the name Mike Roberts have educators associated with him. Also with the DACA program. I don't know what it's called now, but all along Route 3 has something to do with people tied to the DeMoros. And I don't even remember all their names. In other words, all along Route 3 are people involved with intercities, putting predicate acts at and between campuses and next to them, with foreign and domestic medical on a mass scale, lawyers with Hartford Hospital, people that investigated World Trade Center attack, roles with that. But you guys investigated as roles too, being used to censor the breaching method that itself was left out. Its roles with it, and what that caused, we're stayed, already having been stayed, blamed on other things, others ourselves. Cover-ups of mass worse than criminal incompetence were involved with the January 6th treatments, or whatever, the one with at the state capitol, and crowd treatments in general. The prisons have increasing collusion with people at and next to the state corrections offices of Connecticut with the World Trade Center attack, and after as their roles at with body dumping spots with recorded use slash S of them through the years. Also on Facebook recorded. But dude, this is right where and how Facebook is being and haven't been used. Some ways all on their own. Some ways the other police forms and courts have roles changing and faking digital evidences with them as collusions at location slash S with them. And the World Trade Center has something to do with their roles at and next to parks too. I know what it is because the difference of the predicate acts at the campuses, they're fact human nature oriented. Increasingly, people tied to a former Mayor Gold family have been pretending passions, emotions, fake ties, and fake natures of ties to me. And their roles increasingly planting federal crimes with federal criminals before they get caught, and others that are recorded. See, I'm not trying to blame guilt. I'm trying to blame the breaching method. But you guys are pretending you can't discern a breaching method involved, where and how everyone has stayed roles, blaming other things, others themselves, or that body is sensed, including if it is a majority of people, including if it is everyone, black people. Black peoples, and that syntax is adapted to. It's one of the reasons why it's important to discern where and how nature itself shows us. One of the things that is true always that slavery was about a human fact, human nature breaching method that employed other to be communicated for black people's rights with it than nature actually communicates and shows with it. In other words, because even other species' bodies have quality aspects in nature distinct from ourselves, but also non-distinct and simultaneously, but also per that further slash hyper simultaneous. And I say slash because nature shows us there is also another identity of invisible but still discernible there. As parts of the invisible, hyper invisible but still discernible, that can be discerned where and how it's showing us, even though we only have an extent of its complete identity that we can discern with every subject, individually grouped it together. It's a complete identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of it comes with that. But this is where value equals is hyper invisible, but still discernible. This is where value is value as nature slash nature as value, and simultaneously, distinctly, is nature as value slash value as nature. The same way there is an identity greater than what is right from left and left from right, keeping that, or east from west, keeping that a constant, even though, a simultaneous relative to a slash hyper simultaneous. See, all the parts of your body, English was revealed to be taught this way. Many pray. So, in other words, with the semi-nature relationship we have to the identity that shows us, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that projected when we discern how we didn't invent those qualities, aspects in nature like two eyes, and or nor alone, not alone, and the other species' bodies didn't invent how they have those quality aspects in nature. Again, distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneously. Again, but per that further hyper simultaneous. So it's serious because we have serious subjects like nuclear weapons. How many times when you see someone go up the book, we're almost to the nuclear point. The clock is coming to the top. It's almost the last. In other words, what we do, we just make it a little bit smaller. In other words, that's not how to do it. There are real predicate acts that can be seized. Not one be pleased. In other words, but with blame. Even where there are needs to blame people and things, don't leave out the breaching methods roles with this. Because roles with the breaching methods sustained, even though no one wanted it, were roles hurting other people, other things, and helping them as collusions too, and pretending other two are being sensed. And then that needed to be addressed by everyone because that's all that can be discerned more and more. And all that is hid behind and through. Ugh. How long are they going to pretend they when they say follow the money, they don't realize? They know that there are things declassified from, even the senators have things declassified from them. What's this gang of eight? In other words, modern countries are suits and ties, counters, exceptions. They knew science's voices A through Z. This breaching method knew they wouldn't be able to speak. You guys have other communicators for James Madison and for our founders behind him. Then they communicated. You have self-valued roles with uses of their words, leaving out with nature itself and what they communicated about that through what was declassified, through how and why they had to declassify it, how everyone's words were monitored through those internationally monitored conversations, the foundations of the suits and ties, the counters and exceptions, having natures of debate that contain quality aspects of nature that are criminally foreign influence, fact human nature, quality aspects of nature, and the pretending of it. Oh, one more person uses extremism. Get down. How are you going to defend Palestine? We're using the word extremism. Collusion with the World Trade Center attack. No torture and extortion. Torture and extremism brought up. Let's say delusions. We're going to address the delusions of the mental experts and the ones with badges. There are a whole bunch of ones with badges and gavels that are tied to Harvard Hospital personally and professionally, fabricating transcripts, forging names of other doctors, and with names next to there. These are not legitimate roles with unmarked police forms and the roles with the elements of such, etc. Instead, used to keep, the way the breaching method shows them. It shows the branches of government. It shows everyone, the overt criminal enterprises, private ones at the same time. We think witch trials, but I don't bring out which witch trials about without bringing out what was entrenched. A slavery, torture, extortion method against everyone rolls. Otherwise, that body was sentenced. The all incensed vaccines. In other words, so please follow mandated law. The law says that we can only speak for ourselves. The Wethersfield police have their Facebook page with this Michael Emmit, further involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids and lying about their motivations when they pretend that they care for, that's why their motivation for the police chief Centron has something to do with a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield at the corner of Route 3 and Elm Street with a Mazzucato family years and with a whole bunch of people tied to them, involved with identity theft frauds years before they had their modern Mazzucato bakery there. They have roles of retired police chiefs with foreign and domestic medical families and with their intimate ties. Reno Mazzucato is one reportedly the husband of a Jessica Cintron, the daughter of the police, one of the retired police chiefs, involved with predicate acts with child offenders in the principal upskirt picture, nature. On Facebook, involved with this Michael Emmett, further with the Wethersfield Police Facebook page, New Britain Superior Court's Facebook page, falsified police reports, police switching of names, lying about their motivations for it, changing digital evidences, faking them. Whole bunch of people with a Judge Killian and a Dr. Aziz and a Dr. Zeman involved with child sexual and medical offenders and their roles with drug cliques that affected some untimely death rolls at Trinity College and on my street with the people involved with wire crimes with the Wethersfield Police Department where it is now and where it used to be. And their patients and criminals run in at the same time and they they put fake recorded audio and video at places, at campuses, filmed 24/7, including child campuses, including hospitals and fire campuses. A Del Ferro family sought me out as strangers to make it look like other at a fire campus. He was directed to do that and know things about me to be able to get away with it. per his roles with probate court judges, per his father in confessions over the phone, because that kept getting brought up, has something to do with the World Trade Center attack and his roles at the sides of Town Line Drive and town lines. And Weathersfield Police is now near the town line of Hartford. All kinds of corruption along South End, even if it's acting because they're training police firms and what they're doing. They have a whole bunch of people involved with Fred Grisey, involved with the FBI and courts, which sexual and medical offenders of kids, identity theft frauds, people from private schools colluding with people that aren't even there, even know each other at public schools, in the narratives and databases fake. Conversations with the leaders of the kids at the schools connected. Has roles with the World Trade Center attack and the ones with predicate acts to hide that, like WFSB, which is also their confirmations of their roles with the people that were in the New York spot. So they have fake conversations with me. Increasingly, people that have no conversations make nonverbal confirmations, like the lawyer of Robert Chevrolet, like the lawyer of Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act of Robert Chevrolet, and people next to his location, John Maiano, and state police family members through time, male and female, associated with 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike. Also, a Spada family confirmed confessions and demonstrations of my neighbors, involved with them with various judges, and they said it was a probate. And I recorded. No, I recorded. I mean, I learned on my own. There's a probate court judge in her associated with their family /IES. They have family members, a whole bunch of sisters and a brother. I never met the brother, and I don't know the sisters. I barely know the sisters. And one of them, like the one who lives, they made one exception. I was in her presence, but I barely spoke. She lives near Dearborn Street in Newington. See, these are people involved with foreign and domestic intelligence. The difference of that as military, state police, forensics, etc. So they have roles, training, police forms. They had, I don't know if it's still called what they call their roles with the kids. They're keeping the police. They're keeping each of the sciences, voices, criminally foreign influence, fact, treatment, nature, quality, aspects, and nature itself, so that they can keep all natures of resolutions as collusion /S with the torture, extortion, slavery method that is also clearer than day, manifest where and how people get away or got away so long with pretending they don't realize how there are predicate acts methods recorded clearer than day upon the people of the suburbs, let alone of Hartford, described as a suburban /urban, let alone New York City, as straight up urban, clearer than day. 2, not by accident, the veterans' homes built that stupid infrastructure. Unsafe, or whatever, you get safe, it's just safe, but it's just a still top down cause to negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures concentrated. This breaching method designed the suburbs to cause negative value nature, progressions, acts, and natures, to push everyone onto value nature systems tactically ulterior from natures, to get people to blame the causes of that on other things, others, or selves, leaving out and not realizing really it needs people on systems others. So when nature would demonstrate that, it could employ roles blaming those natures, those demonstrations on other things, others, or self, and pretending not to realize. So it could hide behind, with and through that. Increasingly, forgiveness is because their nature itself is showing us it is more probable and it is more practical to convict than an ancient breaching method, not as names A through Z. It forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded names A through Z to start blaming other things, others, or selves for things it did. And then it locked them into defending that more and more. simultaneously locking them more and more incapable of having discerned, let alone of protracting short words by the identity the sciences share simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously. YouTuber Anthony Wall. Their agencies are recorded pretending that people influencing people to pretend that others want, or they just want to have views. Just they know that I have recorded them involved with other digital crimes worse than the principal upskirt picture was put in jail for, and the people at his jail were involved with that with him before he was caught, and with criminally foreign influence uses of the names at collusions with names at and next to a serial killer's body dumping spot, and with use slash s of that person himself and his doctors recorded involved criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and differences racket. That's a child abuse son of a bitch too. That I believe he's Pakistani with Sandy Hook prison, and with this O'Brien family involved with child offenders, sexual and medical, and various police departments and wire and mail crimes. Methods with them. Get them on paper, please. Judge Napolitano. Someone tell Judge Napolitano, get them on paper and have them say sorry to you for hiding and changing digital evidences, including as collusion slash S with Channel 3 News's World Trade Center predicate acts and collusions with the names involved. Also, there are a whole bunch of people tied to a Claudia Scalora. I don't know their names. They know my name. Intercities involved with the intelligence board and domestic, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, as the ones at next to the news locations of Connecticut and the public television. See how they have the posts blocked with this Michael Emmit? Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Watch how they use the right to lie where they didn't have the right to lie, and what they're doing with the sense and sensibilities of the kids, parents, family members, this news, all that, etc. Get them on paper. Let's watch out. Now, let's get them all. Let's go. Follow me.